First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Good afternoon and welcome in. I'm meteorologist Ross Mummah, joined not only by Chief Meteorologist Tim Deegan today, but we also have a special guest who often is on the morning edition of this, Meteorologist Lee Southwick.
You know, Lou and I this morning teased that it would be you two today. So now they're all shocked and horrified to see me, I'm sure, in this afternoon.
A Monday treat.
Come on.
A Monday treat.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Unfortunately, though, it's sort of a tough subject.
Yeah.
Well, so I was going to take us on a radar tour before we got to that.
Great.
That's fair. It's active, right?
Yeah, to just give a look out the window here to show folks what we currently have going on, and then that will kind of lead us into it, if that's all right with you guys.
Sure, absolutely.
Let's do it.
Go, Captain.
Yeah, so we kind of saw a lot of the clouds just kind of rolling on through earlier today. That was kind of the time lapse that you saw there, but kind of a wave of showers and just kind of training storms out of the west. But I think if you kind of zoom out and look at the water vapor view, you can kind of see the stuff over Mississippi, Alabama, and then heading into Georgia. It kind of just gets wrung out, the moisture of it. So the overall storm threat has diminished a good bit for our far south, or not southwestern, northwestern counties in southeast Georgia. So
while you have that up, do you mind if I hop on here?
No, go ahead.
Because anybody who watches this far, you can see things just blowing up over the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
The Gulf. And I think it's a great example of the waters are warmer there, right, about 75 to 80 degrees, so it allows for more moisture. Whereas I was just checking our dew points. I think NAS right now, the dew point's in the mid-40s. So to your point, you know, this stuff is losing its moisture, drier air, whereas I would say over the central Gulf, they're actually farther removed from the front, and yet that is quite the complex. I think when that happens also, it tends to cause the energy and moisture converge toward it, as opposed to storm systems farther off to the north. So further supports, I think, where you were heading with this, Ross.
Yeah, the fuel source is much further off to our west and southwest there in the Gulf. So just some light rain kind of moving in, really north of I-10. So light showers up toward Waycross, northern Ware County, Pierce, Brantley. Might see a little bit of some rain here, and that'll kind of be the trend throughout the remainder of this evening. But winds a little bit breezy too, but nothing too bad for the most part out of the southwest. But you can kind of see right there where that front's set up at, kind of in between Brunswick and Waycross, and then straight out along Valdosta is pretty much where the front's currently set up, wouldn't you say?
And then this does kind of make me wonder, just looking at it, you do see a pretty strong sea breeze coming in from the southeast, and there must be some kind of convergent factor over the central Gulf. So it does make me wonder if not there, maybe over central Florida, if they might get some late afternoon thunderstorms. Although I think if there's going to be any shower thunderstorm activity, we're pretty much thinking southeast Georgia, right?
Yeah, for the most part. So if you have plans this evening out around Jacksonville and everything, you should be all right. Here's just kind of a quick futurecast loop of what some of the models are showing. So there's Waycross at 7:30 here tonight. So again, southeast Georgia is going to have the best chance to see some rain at least through the remainder of your Monday evening here. So I know outside the door right now, we actually do have a decent amount of sun, a lot of high clouds from all the storms and stuff off to the west. So it's showing cloudy skies. I think those really won't roll in probably until after midnight, a little bit actual cloudier.
And can I make a plug for our weather team?
Sure.
I'm saying compared to Siri, and of course I know the technology continues to improve, right? But I know that we were traveling this weekend with my wife, and every morning she expected to wake up to cloudy skies. And yet every day we had nothing but thin cirrus clouds. So folks, as good as Siri is, if you really want it nailed down, join or tune into or whatever, go to your app for the weather team, because for some people maybe it doesn't make a big bit of a difference. But
if you're out there trying to tan and you decide not to go to the beach that day because you expect it to be cloudy and it's really just a lot of high level clouds.
Right, or vice versa,
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe have just come down from Minneapolis, St. Paul. And you see the Siri says, I'm talking about my nephew now, so I'll be honest. And you see what Siri says, and they go outside for an outdoor wedding, and suddenly anything that faces up, that is their forehead, their chin, literally the top of his hands and his feet Because, the cool youngsters these days, they wear black tie, but then no socks. Maybe, Ross, you're cool and you do that too. I love the idea of it. My wife doesn't quite get it yet. But still, so the next day, because he thought it was going to be cloudy, that's a great point. The next day, he thought it was going to be cloudy, and he was burnt on top of his hands and his ankles. That's when you know that you've been up north, when you're burning on your ankles and the top of your hands.
But he was doing it for love, right?
Well, doing it for love. Gosh, couldn't have said it better. Okay.
All right, well, now we're going to go from a happy note to a little bit more of a somber note here. This is a live look atop the Dames Point Bridge, kind of looking off to the west, out across the St. Johns River, where that boat capsized last Friday evening.
And Ross, you and Lee were here, Ross on Friday, Lee over the weekend. So I'd love to hear y'all's perspective on, just exactly what you're talking about.
Well, so I'll just kind of talk about what we had here Friday night, and then I'll kind of hand it off to Lee. Was it about 7 or 7:30 when the
7
boat
o'clock.
did? Yeah, so 7 o'clock the boat kind of officially capsized. The group of 8 people. Water temperatures themselves were in the mid-60s, so certainly is a chilly and a shock to the system.
Yeah.
But not Arctic cold. And the air temperature itself at that time was in the mid-60s. I will say, once our news crews and a lot of the rescue crews were out there, temperatures were starting to dip down into the mid to low 50s by 9, 10, 11 p.m. Friday evening. So the air temperature was certainly starting to dip quite a bit lower than what the actual water temperatures were. But Lee, we don't, this was not caused by any sort of weather conditions from what we can see out there, right?
Yeah, we don't think so because it was approaching low tide. And usually when that happens, it means that your current's starting to slow down. The winds were light, so it wasn't too choppy out there. So it's all speculation. We don't have the report yet, but what we have seen, it doesn't lead us to believe it was weather that actually caused this boat to capsize. And I also want to bring in Tim because, Tim, I know that you want to talk about the water temperature when they fell in, 65 degrees, like you said, how that can really chill you to the bone.
Yeah, well, I think Ross makes a great point in that it wasn't like it was in the 30s and 40s like it would be up north. So I'm sure it didn't cause, immediate shock. On the other hand, I'm thinking if that incident had happened, let's say in August, water would have been 82, 85 degrees. You can at least imagine, without us knowing the details, that maybe a person would be a little more relaxed. I think all of us can think about especially if we're unexpectedly thrown into cold water, that in itself can catch your breath, cause you to tighten up. Warmer water allowed you to relax. And if we have no idea what happened, if by some chance someone happened to be able to float to the top at 82 degrees, you probably could have floated there through the night and been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When you're down in the mid-60s, you can get hypothermia after a few hours.
And so also just one point I want to make, everything, the data that I got here, you can see it's from a gauge that's right under the Dames Point Bridge. And these boaters, the boat capsized near Goat Island. So it's very close to the Dames Point Bridge, but it's not exactly under. So you can, of course, see things shift as you move down the river. But it was very close to it. And as we don't know the exact currents from exactly where the boat capsized. There's still a lot of unknowns here, but again, with it approaching low tide and the winds were light, we don't think there was a lot of issues on the water directly, and with the currents, it should have been slowing down. So now, these are your current conditions out there. Still your water temperature, as of last check, it was coming in at 66 from that gauge. Sunset tonight at 7:40. We still know they're out there right now looking for one more person, but the winds out of the southwest at 10 miles an hour, and so that's going against the current because the high tide's going to be later on, right around 5:30, 8 p.m., and so that's likely making it a bit choppier. What was the word you used, Tim?
It can create standing waves.
Standing
because
waves.
the water's trying to go against that wind. So it's a recovery, obviously, at
Right.
this point. It would be interesting to see how large, if not that area is, because when it's not flat tide, because that's really more like a channel right there than a river, and it is deep, that the currents there can get very strong. And because it is deep, I've been told that the currents don't just go horizontal, but they can also, because of the sort of vortices that develop, they can go down and come back up.
Yeah.
So a lot of variables there. I don't want to lecture anybody at all, but I do think sometimes maybe we get a little more lax when the weather is extremely tranquil. We're not focused on So that's just me attempting to say as a reminder, as we come up to the warmer season, maybe almost more so when the weather's going to be really nice and you're thinking about taking out a lot of people, try to focus on all those variables that maybe don't seem like they're going to be a big deal, but obviously, sometimes they can. I without me knowing anything, we do know, because that's the industrial part of the St. John's, right? The channel,
Right.
that there are big tugboats and ships out there, and that means there's just a lot of variables in that part of the river.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it was approaching sunset that time. Sunset was a little after 7:30 Friday, and that of course made rescue, I'm sure, a bit more difficult as we were losing sunlight in the sky. And Ross, you were there. When we had our crews out to the scene, was it dark by then?
Yeah, I think it was almost, and Jackson might be able to say, to this as well when the call came in, but I think it was at least maybe 9 o'clock.
Wow.
When, we got the call in and the crew started to go out. I mean, it was certainly dark at that point. Tim, have you, in your 40 odd years here, have there been other instances similar to this on the St. John's River specifically?
There have, but I must admit, if it more typically happens at night, and it tends to be people, and these are from what officials said afterwards. It tends to happen at night and tends to be people who are going faster than they should, and they run into an object going really fast.
Oh, awful.
An incident like this where it sounds like maybe the boat just or the people were forced off the boat. I don't remember many incidents like that.
Where you're not 100% sure exactly what happened.
Right.
Most of the time
Right.
they have an idea that they did hit something or.
I mean, occasionally we've had weather events where we're like, that squall line came in and therefore that probably flipped the boat, or the thunderstorm or whatever. But actually more from people at night and then running into pilings they don't see at night, piers, that kind of stuff.
Well, as we approach boat season, it's like our plea to make sure you have all the proper lighting and practice your boat safety as we get into these warmer months.
It's water's such a fun thing, but I do think, and maybe almost more so for those of us that are in it a lot, that maybe we lose some of the respect we have. I know sometimes that can happen to me, that there's just a lot of variables out there in the water.
Well, so if we have any more updates, and I'm sure we will, from the crews out there, we can, we'll obviously get those to you on air and online at firstcoastnews.com and on the First Coast News app. So any more new information, we'll be sure to get that to you straight away. But at least for the rest of the forecast here, besides this evening's rain, Tim, looking pretty good the rest of the week. I mean,
it is. Now, I have to say, just because, as you know, we look at a lot of computer models. As much as really for a week we've been saying we thought the Gators and the Noles would play ball. And for those who aren't keeping up, probably one of the biggest baseball games in these parts are when the Gators and the Noles play each other.
Can I get a Go Gators?
And there you go. There you go. That's probably the real reason that Lee hopped in here, because her Gators are playing tomorrow evening. But for about a week, we've been saying, we think they're going to play ball. But for about a week, one of the models we call the GFS, it's been hinting at, maybe the front would hang up just enough and there'd be a couple isolated showers. So I was a little anxious, but I think even my anxiety at this point, because I do know the person that's thrown in the first pitch, we're confident we're going to play ball, right?
Oh, I think so, yeah. I mean, I do have it in here somewhere. I'm trying to click through to get to the baseball forecast so that Lee can add her 2 cents in here.
It is. There they are.
5 minutes later, I finally get to it. It looks like we should have clear skies and a pretty warm evening over there at ViStar Ballpark.
What a time to be a Gator. Man, Lee is in the
amen.
Sweet 16. Her team is playing. I think your baseball team is ranked in the single digits too,
Yeah,
right?
both teams are very good. I think that's
Yeah.
why this game's sold out.
Yes.
So now if you do want to go.
Wouldn't it just be terrible if the Noles... Well, what's it called when a team beats you so bad the game is called because of runs? What's that called, Ross? What's that called? Ross would know.
Like a run rule?
Yeah, like a run rule.
Like a mercy rule?
Yeah, and my memory is terrible, Lee, but it seems like that happened.
Okay, can we
That
end?
happened to
You know what,
Gators
Tim? I
last
think
year.
it's already past
I think
your
it was
time.
like
Don't you leave
14
at
to nothing or
you
something
leave at
then.
4:20,
I'm
right?
not saying
It's time
that's
to
going to
go.
happen this year, but
By the way, how's your college doing in the Sweet 16?
We're studying. We go to college to study. Basketball just got in the way. And we've been told baseball season's coming up, but primarily we're doing as students should do. We're studying for the spring finals.
You know what? UF is also a top-ranked public university in academics, basketball, and baseball.
But how strong is their meteorology program?
It's brand new. Now this is my plug. Thank you. So UF now has a meteorology degree, and yours truly is on the board. So if you are any students in your life, they want to become a meteorologist, the University of Florida is a great university for them to go to.
That's a very good point. You're right. I should add.
We have the degree now, so now just hit me up. I can get that connection for you and all the students in your life.
And as you know, we love all kind of meteorologists, but let's face the facts. The facts are there is a big demand for female meteorologists. From your perspective on things, if that makes sense. Ross doesn't want to get into the vocabulary.
Well, I was like, Penn State's terrible at basketball. We're also terrible at baseball, so I'm not getting into that conversation.
Football,
you have a good meteorology program.
And we do. Great meteorology and football, of course, too. Football is fun, you all. During football season here in this room between us three, it's a good time.
I think, I enjoy ice cream.
Tim gets ice cream when he wins the bet, so really, when it comes to SEC football.
I'm very careful about my bets. Notice, Lee, I did not bet you at all about this whole basketball right
No, you didn't. And
because y'all are looking pretty strong.
I should have started a bet with that. So just so you all know, when they beat us in baseball, I had to buy him ice cream. And then football came around, and I thought I don't know why I thought we had a chance. The Gators disappoint me a lot. Not this week. Knock on wood. But yes.
And enjoy where you are for now. Sweet 16, that's pretty good.
It's fun. It's exciting. Yesterday's game was not. That gave me a heart attack.
But you got the W.
That's all that matters sometimes, right?
And hey, great weather for everyone in the Jacksonville metro area heading to the game tomorrow, the baseball game tomorrow. So stuff to look forward to.
Oh, there it is. Ross has got the 7-day outlook. So okay, meteorologist. So I think this is a tough forecast. So what do you think? We have a higher risk of thunderstorms late Sunday or Monday?
Probably Monday.
Lee?
Monday.
Okay. All right. Well, we all agree. So careful. We better watch that. We better check ourselves on that forecast.
Can we crop off the end of this recording if we're wrong? Just kidding. But you know what? I will say I got a lot of comments on this too. I mentioned this in the morning show last week, but friendly reminder for everyone, as your brackets are busting right now, that it is hard to predict the future. So be nice to your local meteorologist as well.
Love that.
I like it. Alrighty, anything else?
I can't think of a better way to finish than be nice to your local meteorologist.
All right, let's sign off on that. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, that's Lee, that's Tim, I'm Ross. Take care and enjoy the rest